Before we even get into this video, I wanted to give a massive shout out to all of you guys who supported the launch of Chimera when we dropped it, the pump and the pre-workout. The support has been absolutely insane. You guys seem to be loving the flavors, the formula, all of the little details, the intricate details of the design. So thank you guys so much for the support. I'll leave a link down below to all the different products. We'll definitely be expanding the line soon and expanding the flavors as well. So if you guys have any suggestions as far as next products, next flavors, any of that different stuff, let me know in the comment section down below. Let's talk about how getting shredded ruined my life. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so a little bit of a different style video today. I'm back in the studio, which is actually my room. I have my shirt on for once, which is surprising to most of you guys, I know. But today we're gonna take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the downfalls of the seemingly glorious lifestyle that you guys have seen over the past few years with me maintaining sub 5% body fat, 4.4 according to the hydrostatic body fat test. I know some of you guys are probably not interested in this topic, so if that's you, then you could probably click off this video, but I also know there is a lot of people that are interested in this topic. We're also going to talk a little bit about my mental state when I was maintaining that level of body fat percentage and how I was feeling, how I was convincing myself if I was hungry or not, how I was forcing myself to do more cardio, and how I was sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night and still functioning throughout my day. So let's do it. So let's start with the numbers. 3 years ago was when this generally started, when I started becoming a little bit more obsessive about the numbers. Back then I was having 3,000 plus calories and I was playing soccer as well as doing bodybuilding. Now when I stepped aside from the soccer field, my focus has shifted from, oh, I need to fuel for soccer, I need to make sure my performance is optimal, to only bodybuilding, only the way I was looking, only how lean I was. I started obsessing over every little detail of my food, my diet, just to get to this sub 5% body fat level. You know, 1 pack of beef, have to make sure that's the exact weight on the food scale, and then I gotta make sure that I'm exactly this number of calories in my fitness pal, or else I'm gonna get fat, or else I'm not gonna look the way that I wanna look. So it became so obsessive to the point of delusion. Now, as this line got pushed further and further, where my focus was so much on cutting calories and getting leaner and leaner and leaner, I started to lose sense of my body's actual hunger cues. So my satiety was no longer determined by whether or not I felt hungry on a particular day or at a particular time. It was instead just determined by what number I see in my fitness pal. I then started adding in things that would curb my appetite or make myself feel more full. For example, carbonated drinks that bloat you. Drinks to curb cravings, then I don't know what you're doing with your life. These are literally lifesavers when it comes to dieting. If you're getting into like a diet stage and you're trying to like kill cravings between meals, if you have some sort of drink, it definitely does help curb your craving. So I'd use that in between my meals to push off the next meal and eat less calories overall. Obviously not a good thing if you're trying to optimize performance. I know a lot of bodybuilders who are going into a dieting phase. Essentially, that's what I was doing for 2 years straight. I was shredding for a show and I never brought my calories back up, and that was eventually to my detriment. It started to become this vicious cycle of burn more, eat less, and every single crutch that I was using to make myself feel less hungry began to increase. Having 1 artificially sweetened carbonated drink turned into having 5 artificially sweetened carbonated drinks. So I would tell myself I'm fine. You know, you tell yourself you're fine, you're not hungry, and you keep driving yourself, and your adrenaline's going so much that you don't even notice these hunger cues anymore, and it doesn't matter. Your brain disassociates the hunger from the cues itself and just says, okay, if this number in MyFitnessPal says that it's too high, you shouldn't be hungry. Although I didn't have a super active social life in the first place, small things like going out to restaurants and seeing the meals on the menu and not knowing the macronutrients, that became an issue for me. So I became so obsessive that I wouldn't let myself go out and have a bite to eat with a friend or go out just because I didn't know the calories in the particular food. On top of that, my focus was so much on burn that I'd constantly be thinking about my next meal, or I'd constantly be thinking about my next training session to make sure that I'm burning enough calories, that I'm not gaining body fat, that I'm getting leaner and leaner and leaner. My mind was never at rest for 1 second. It was constantly, what's the next training session? What's the next meal? Am I eating too much? Am I getting fat? On top of all that, when you're on social media, obviously you have this massive platform and you're putting out videos constantly, and you get these people commenting, you know, you look great, or you're looking leaner, or you're looking good. And in my head, obviously that just makes me want to go more and more and more to that point. Another thing that I became extremely obsessed about was the number of steps that I was hitting per day. It didn't matter if I was on the treadmill or if I was on the Stairmaster or whatever cardio monster that I was doing. I had to hit 10 to 20,000 steps a day, upwards of 20,000 pretty much for 2 years straight. If my phone didn't say that I hit 15 to 20,000 steps every single day, I'd be beating myself up. I'd be thinking that, you know, I'm gonna get fat or something like that. So honestly, it was just this endless cycle of running my body into the ground and never giving it to the opportunity to grow. Not to mention I was training 7 days a week and oftentimes doing 2-a-days. So to put things into perspective, I'd be doing 2 training sessions a day. On top of that, I'd be doing cardio. On top of that, I'd be moving around constantly to make sure that I hit that 20,000 step mark. Cumulatively, I'm adding up to 4 training sessions a day in a sense, and I was absolutely killing myself by being so active in general. Anyways, now you guys have a gist of just how obsessive I was over every single detail, making sure that my calories were sub 1800, making sure that my steps were 20,000, making sure that I was training twice a day, all of these different obsessive things, not letting myself go out to eat. Now you guys have a better idea of exactly how obsessive I was. Let's get into the details of some of the negative effects this had. So let's talk about sleep. Sleep was probably one of the first things that took a toll on me. Obviously, it wasn't just one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I was only getting 4 hours of sleep from then on. It was slowly progressive. So as I dropped my calories from 3,000 all the way down to 1,800 where they were at, my sleep continued to take a toll, and by the end I was only sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night and still working throughout the entire day. Now when you're in this mindset like I was in, where I was so obsessed over how I was looking, I wasn't taking into account the other factors that are going to affect my performance, my training, how I'm looking, and how I'm feeling on a daily basis. Sleep was one of those things. How was I still functioning? I have no fucking idea. I would literally wake up at 1:30 or 2 a.m., work until 9 p.m. the following day, and that's with the 20,000 steps, the 2 training sessions, filming content, editing content, working on the supplement company. I go to bed at 9 p.m. the next night, and then I wake up at 1:30 or 2 a.m. the next morning. I don't know how I was functioning. My body was running off of pure adrenaline for the entirety of that time, and I had no sense of whether or not I was actually tired. Now I'd wake up in the middle of the night starving at 1:30 or 2 a.m. I'd have to go to the bathroom, which was extremely frustrating, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. My mind was in such a position of, I need to make sure that my calories are at this point, I need to make sure that my activities at this point, that none of those cues matter, and my brain was so rewired to think, you're fine, just try to go back to sleep, or you're fine, just keep working. I think that a lot of bodybuilders who are in a competitive dieting stage, where they're about to get on stage and they're dropping down to sub 5% body fat levels, deal with similar things, whether it's a frequent urination, whether it's a waking up in the middle of the night, and it's a serious issue. Now the problem is when you go for a year and a half and you don't address that issue, it progressively gets worse and worse and worse. It was extremely backwards at that point for me to think that my training and my body composition was going to improve with those levels of sleep, with those levels of stress, and going forward, continuing to decrease my calories, increase my activity, obviously it was just getting worse and worse. Now let's talk about strength. Strength's a little bit more difficult to comprehend, especially if you're in a cutting phase, because in that initial stage when you cut your calories down, you still may be able to maintain that level of strength for a certain period of time. Now the issue is when you extend that period for too far, then you start to regress. And since I was so focused on my body composition, I didn't take into account that my strength was regressing. I went from pressing 120 pound dumbbells on an incline dumbbell press to 3 months later only being able to press 110 pound dumbbells for the same amount of reps. So going forward, I'm looking at my lifts and making sure that, okay, I'm consistently improving this lift, and if I'm not, I'm plateaued, then I'm taking a look at, is my recovery suffering? Where do I need to improve? Okay, so that's the strength portion of it. So now let's talk about anxiousness and irritability. This was something that affected my entire day. I started to bite my nails. I started to crave super sweet things. I didn't want to be around other people, and I was a little bit more irritable. I was so hyper focused on eating or training that was the only thing that I could think about all day. It didn't matter. I didn't want to spend time with people. I didn't want to work on anything with people. I was just so focused on how can I drive my body forward so that I can create this video or get this content content or whatever it may be, and just so that I can stay at this sub 5% body fat levels. The issue was clearly that the perception I had of my body was irrational and delusional. I couldn't look in the mirror and accurately assess, say, okay, I'm either A, building muscle, putting on size, putting on body fat, or losing body fat. Instead, it was just, oh, I'm getting fat. And this fear and this anxiety began to affect my entire life. I was just so hyper focused on doing all these things to maintain this sub 4% body fat levels, which obviously was not optimal. So where am I at now? I've shifted my diet from eating 1,800 calories a day all the way up to now I'm eating 2,700 calories a day. Obviously quite the big jump. I didn't just jump from 1,800 to 2,700 because I don't think that would have been the best thing for my body. I slowly increased over time, and I've started to see progression in my training again, which is obviously very exciting for me, and it's given me a little bit of perspective to not be so hyper focused on cut, because if you're hitting a certain point where you're just regressing, there's no point in doing it in the first place. My activity has decreased quite significantly. Before, as I said, I was training 7 days a week, and I was doing 2-a-days, and I was doing cardio, and then I was trying to hit 20,000 steps. I've pulled back on a lot of these different factors just to make sure that my body is recovering properly. So now that I've increased my calories and I've decreased my activity, my sleep has seen significant improvements, from sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night to now sleeping upwards of 8 hours a night pretty much every night. My steps I've lowered so significantly. I was at 20,000 as I said, and now I'm barely even counting because I'm just focused on cutting back that training to make sure that the next day I'm able to go into my training session, lift the most amount of weight, get the most amount of output. So I've shifted my mentality from drive to instead, how can I optimize the next training session? How can I optimize this week? And how can I optimize this month so that I'm continuing to progress over time? What I failed to take into account before was how the activity of my previous day was affecting the activity on the following day, or the activity in the following week, or the progression in the following week. If I was to do 25,000 steps and eat 1,800 calories on the Monday, how is that going to affect Tuesday? How is that going to affect Wednesday? How is that going to affect Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and so on and so forth? So now instead, I've been looking at a more macro level, how is my week being affected by a single day's activity? How is my sleep being affected by a single day's activity? So there's a little bit more of a deeper look at the crazy things that I was doing to maintain sub 5% body fat levels. As I said, this was one of the most psychotic ways to live, in my opinion. You guys can let me know in the comment section down below, but each day I'm just trying to progress and learn one more thing to continue to progress my training, which is what I'm doing. If you guys did enjoy the video, please leave a like. Let me know in the comment section down below if there's any other topics you want me to discuss, whether it's around body dysmorphia, eating disorders, maintaining low body fat percentages, bulking, any of that different stuff. Let me know down in the comment section down below, and we'll get those to you guys.